for those of you surviving the Arctic blast, hopefully you're all staying warm. A couple of housekeeping items. As always, we're going to shoot for this to be around 30 minutes, plus or minus a bit, depending on the questions and answers, of course. And John will be personing the chat room if you have any questions or comments or thoughts.
Yeah, we one of the nice things about doing this as a dual is one of us can operate the chat a lot easier and get a little bit more of your questions answered during the session. So feel free to drop them in, and we'll save some time at the end for getting through all the questions we might not have touched on beforehand.
And for those of you who are obviously on this call with us and those who just registered, we will be sending out the slides and the recording tomorrow.
Or soon, anyway. We might even get it out today. We'll see.
Somebody should tell our group that.
So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, how to shift the team into overdrive based on some of the new trends that we're seeing going on. So it'll be interesting to see if there are anybody challenging these trends as we go through them, or if they have comments to go over it as well. And so based on those things, you know, we heard a lot of chatter in November and December, and people were sounding like they really wanted to hit the ground running. There was this feeling of procrastination when the holidays come in the middle of the week, and we had almost 2 weeks that we couldn't get people going. And so now we're ready to rock and roll. And that's how we feel that we're jumping into this year, is just on the starting block, ready to take off.
Yeah, it's hard to believe we're 3 weeks into 2025 already, and there's just so much that's changed already. So let's talk about some of the trends.
So one of the things that we've realized is there's always a little uncertainty around the talent landscape. We're always worried about attracting the superstars, retaining the superstars, motivating them to be superstars. And every year, every new employee or returning employee brings with it its own possibilities and opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, as we're putting this together, and we started looking at all the different trends that were brought to our attention, we realized this is going to be a crazy year, and there's a lot of impact it's going to have on our talent, and we just wanted to bring up a lot of those different considerations that we should all have moving into the year, and the impact it's going to have on our team.
A little bit on the Meadows Group. For those of you who don't know, it's hard to believe in March we'll be celebrating 29 years of constant evolving. And we started in Metro Detroit, and about 10 years after that, so about 19 years ago, made our first scouting expedition to the Charlotte area, and eventually settled here full-time 4 years ago in April. But we've always been focused on the talent in the workplace. How do we make sure we're getting superstars in place, and how do we get superstar performance out of them? And so our senior advisors, our guides, work hand in hand with our clients so that we can guide you through these processes, and you never feel like you're wandering aimlessly through a path in a forest. You have somebody who's an experienced guide taking you through them time and time again, so that you can get the predictable results that you need there, and it doesn't feel like such a rolling of the dice.
Yeah, if you haven't had a chance to check out the Leadership Academy, we just had a launch this afternoon of our new website. There's some enhancements on that
We're
page.
gonna jinx it.
So no, feel free to check it out and explore about some of the different services that are part of the Academy.
We're very proud of our marketing team. They've been working tirelessly since about September, putting a lot of articles and video out there to share with you all kinds of knowledge. So it's available for you free of charge.
So we're going to cover 6 trends.
Economic and talent trends, the cuts. I don't know if you guys are hearing about some of the cuts, not just from the big boys out there, but even small to mid-sized clients. Fractional leadership, and those, I'm sure everybody's doing something with AI.
You can't have a conversation today without talking about AI. Right?
Yeah. it's hard to believe, 3 years ago people couldn't spell AI, and so now we're hard into it. But return to office, which is taking us a while to get used to, because back in the old days it was return to work. So it is now return to office for those of you learning the right lingo, and emotional intelligence, and really how a lot of that affects all of these trends.
And these are the trends that we've observed from our clients and that our advisors have observed in their interactions with our clients. This is just anecdotal. It really isn't anything that you're going to necessarily find on Wall Street Journal or Forbes or any of the other major periodicals. This is what we have witnessed and have brought to our attention, and we just want to share with you all and what we're hearing and what our take is on it.
Mm-hmm. And I guess it's wise for those people who don't understand that we've always worked with our small to mid-sized clients historically. We have some rather large clients, but because we are closer to the small to mid-sized client community, the insights that we get are not necessarily the things that hit top of fold in the publication, as John was talking about.
Yeah, and that's a good point. A lot of these things are what we're observing from maybe 1,000 employees and less size companies. So the first trend is kind of a really unique one. How would you describe this?
Yeah, well, what's interesting to me is the Wall Street Journal actually has teamed up with Vistage for, gosh, I don't know how long. And Vistage is a peer-to-peer CEO group that meets monthly, but they are typically small to mid-sized clients. And so Wall Street Journal has teamed up with them forever. Originally, it was called the Optimism Survey. It is now called the Confidence Index. But every month, Vistage members are asked about what their confidence is relative to the economy and politics and talent and all kinds of things. And there isn't really a direct correlation between what's really happening and business owners' optimism or not. When business owners get spooked, we hoard cash. We don't like to spend money. We just want to hunker down till we get the lay of the land when something just spooks us. When we feel optimistic, even in the midst of some catastrophe, but we're feeling optimistic, we're going to get out of this, we're willing to spend, hire people, get going. So what's crazy is the confidence index has been very high in the last 2 quarters of last year, as people were looking at 2025, but the talent pool is still really low. So while small to mid-sized business owners are wanting to grow and hire and move and bring on some more people, we just haven't been producing enough humans for decades.
Yeah, this is the one that has us the most concerned, where we recognize when the confidence level is this high from CEOs that they tend to do more hiring. And we just don't see the talent pool out there for these organizations to hire their way into some of these growth opportunities. So what we're seeing now is, instead of hiring their way to growth, organizations are now going to have to develop their way to growth and look at different ways to get more out of their existing team and grow them to be better leaders, and focus more on what they have versus bringing on new talent to satisfy all this optimism.
And I think you're going to see that play into some of the other trends that we're going to be talking about. So how do we get more out of the folks that we have if we can't just do it? I'm fearful, the last time I feel like there was this same chomping at the bit and we got to grow, we got to go, was right after the economy was turned back on after COVID, so around August, September, and there are lots of stats we've all seen before about how the unemployment rate plummeted. And so organizations were making what I call desperation hires. I got to have somebody. A warm body is better than nobody. And eventually they found out that that was not true. And they were in a world of hurt, screwed with their culture, with a lot of productivity and a lot of trust in an organization. So the best thing, if you have some good people, but you have to figure out how to get more out of them without using a whip and a chair. You have to figure out how to give them the support they need, the development they need in order to do things more efficiently, more smart than hard or long. And that's going to take some intentional planning on the development.
Yeah, the other important consideration is not only do we need to grow, but we can't lose our
Yeah.
talent. And the number one reason employees leave organizations is their boss. So our recommendation in terms of dealing with retention issues is to develop those bosses to become better leaders to make those superstars want to stick around. So not only do we need to grow our talent, but we got to grow our leadership to prevent the loss of some of these high performers.
And for those of you who've participated in these webinars before, you might recall that some of the stats around the leadership potential in some of the newer generations coming up, and we're asking younger people to do more than we ever have at that age before. Statistically, we can prove that the talent at that age is the exact same it was with our generations. However, we weren't asked to do these things in our 20s. We weren't asked to lead huge teams in our 20s. And so we have to give these folks kind of the support that they need to be able to be superstars in that leadership role. And it's not just about being an individual contributor.
Let's look at the next trend. Oh,
Talent cuts are coming. Mostly, I think we see the talent cuts coming at the much larger organizations where they're laying off lots. That seems to be a challenge, and recruiters who once were worth their weight in gold, over the last 3 years, recruiters could pretty much name their salary. And as talent cuts are coming, the recruiters are finding they're on the street looking for new jobs. And so are some of those folks who had been working for super large companies. So while that may mean some more talent is available, we're still at an unreasonable low. So remember, we've talked before that the 4.5% unemployment is the natural low. And anytime we're hiring below that, we're hiring the unemployable. And we are there. We're still below 4.5%. So even though we're having more people come into the workforce, and again, the folks who work for those extraordinarily large organizations like the Googles of the world or the Apples of the world, those aren't necessarily the exact same people that are being hired by our clients who are the small to mid-size.
but even in smaller organizations who in the last few years have added to their HR staff with recruiters and paid a lot for those recruiters 3 years ago, they have since cut a lot of those roles. And then what that means, though the demand hasn't necessarily diminished, it means that the hiring managers now got to do a lot of that recruiting that recruiters had once been doing for them. So we need to teach our leaders how to screen and recruit better, knowing that having that HR resource has been cut back in the last year or so.
And I know most hiring managers don't like to hear this, but the reality is the hiring managers are the best at sourcing these candidates, because if they are on online networking, if they're networking in person anywhere, somebody who is a superstar in their field wants to talk to the manager of that department who knows the ins and outs of what's going on, what software you're working on, and what are your plans. And the HR person can't answer any of these questions. As a recovering HR person, it's no slam against us. It's just that they want to talk to the inside experts. And so the hiring manager's ability to source or seduce away from another organization is much greater than if you ask a recruiter or an HR person to do it.
And we've also seen a lot of recruiters leave search firms. So not only internal recruiters have we seen some turnover, but also at the search firms, which again makes it harder for the hiring managers to find resources to make those key hires. And they're just going to have to learn how to do a lot of that on their own.
And some of our favorite search firms we've seen actually gobbling up some of the other ones because
yeah, we saw a lot of consolidation.
A lot of consolidation.
Yeah. So number two is the key here is we got to train our leaders. We got to train our leaders to be better
hiring, sourcing, and screening.
Right.
Yep.
Number three.
Ooh, fractional leadership is
this one surprised us. We didn't we didn't know that this
you look at some of the stats that we have up here on the slides, and we heard rumblings a lot, especially in the small to mid-size area. We heard a lot of small to mid-size clients bringing in fractional CFOs. We heard a lot bringing in fractional integrators or fractional COOs. So LinkedIn profiles for fractional people soared in 2024. And then Bureau of Labor Statistics saw a 57% rise. Can you imagine? And that was just 20 to 22. They won't give us the 24 numbers for another 2 years. But it's definitely on the rise. And the global pool of fractional executives is crazy. So I think in some scenarios this works well. I would not say it works well in every scenario.
But the interactions we've had with fractional executives have been very good, all in all. In some cases, they haven't been, but whether it's been a COO or a CFO, I really think that there is a value that these fractional executives can bring. But the key is you got to be intentional about bringing on that fractional resource and being as diligent as you would making a hire. You don't want to disrupt your culture. You want to still make sure that you have a scorecard or a definition in place that you would expect from the fractional executive. But as these organizations grow but don't want to bring on that heavy salary, a fractional approach is working.
Well, and it again, it depends on the person. To John's point, being very clear about what you want this fractional person to be able to do. So to John's point, we've recently been working with someone from Wolf's Integrators who's in a transitional fractional integrator. So she's working with one of our visionaries as he's searching for a full-time integrator. And so she's working part-time with him in this transition and will be able to help transition the next person in. And they're very clear about what her roles and expectations are. And that's a perfect application. But sometimes when I hear people saying, I want a long-term, like years of a fractional CFO or a fractional integrator, that's sometimes difficult because that full-time integrator is supposed to be responsible for supervising everybody on the team. So how do you do that if you're only working a couple of half days a week? Or if you're in charge of the culture, how do you do that if you're remote and you're only work? So I think you have to be very intentional and clear about what the expectations are. Fractional CFOs have been wildly successful for a long time, especially in the small to mid-size world where a full-time controller can do most of the work, but quarterly, every month a touch base with somebody who's looking at things from a CFO strategic level has been incredibly helpful, but there isn't enough of that work to justify a full-time person.
Yeah, and where we've also seen this be effective is bringing on that fractional executive during the transition from when an existing CFO or executive has left before you bring on the next one. And it has relieved a little bit of the pressure from the organization, a little bit of the desperation to make that next hire quickly. Having that fractional executive in place while you're looking to replace the existing one or the past one has made it easier for an organization to transition. So that's fractional.
AI, John's favorite, balancing tech and touch. So this is John's favorite again, as we're looking at trying to get more out of the team that we have. People are saying, I'm just going to hire a bot to do everything. Well, you can't go from doing nothing to doing everything. There's probably some middle ground that we can do. So I'm going to let John take the lead on this one because he's so excited about AI.
Well, yeah, but the challenge we're going to have in 2025 is being careful on how far that pendulum is going to swing towards the tech side. Our natural inclination is going to want to be able to automate. But at some point, we need to recognize that we have to have that human touch in a lot of these organizations. The other challenge that we are having around AI is the generational acceptance. It's not the same. I read an article this morning that said that Gen Zs nowadays would much prefer to interact with a bot than they would a human. And that these Gen Zs have a deeper trust of a bot than they do a human. And it's just hard for us to understand that in many cases. But there's a lot of value that AI is going to bring in 2025. We just got to be intentional about how we're using it and empathetic about the impact that's going to have on our users.
And I think one of the things to keep in mind and keep reminding people is we're going to develop back to the first trend where we need to develop people more to be able to handle these things. There is a lot of education that's available now on how to leverage it in your marketing, in just some of your communication crafting, some of the other things that can be used that can be, to John's point, the repetitive tasks that can be eliminated. Um, you know, for those of us who've been around a while, we all remember when people were saying that using calculators were going to make us give us lazy brains, that nobody needed a calculator in school, or that computers were going to put everybody out of business. And it didn't, or put everybody out of work. It actually created more jobs in so many different ways. And I think AI in the long run is going to maybe give us different jobs, but I doubt. And so, yes, your job as you do it today may not be the same even 6 months from now. But it doesn't mean it isn't going to be even more valuable or more interesting because it's stuff that AI isn't doing.
Yeah, another application that I saw recently where there's a video AI of one of the spokespersons for an organization, and you can kind of tell it was an AI, but I'll bet that a year from now you won't be able to tell that person talking was an AI. But one of the best practices that was presented in this forum was when these synthetic AIs are talking, is to introduce themselves as the synthetic avatar of the person they're representing, just to be for full disclosure and the use of that. So just another example of how AI is going to come into play, and we just need to demonstrate some empathy towards those who are watching it and letting them know that yes, this is not the real person, but this has been somebody that has been trained to speak like them.
So it might be, hi, I'm John's representative. He's tried to train me to be just like him, but I'll come as close as I can, or something.
Yeah.
So people realize, oh, it is a bot.
Yeah, I am most interested in how the video portion of AI is going to evolve this year. I think we're seeing a lot in text that has been improved upon, and as video gets better, I think it's going to be a huge impact.
Yeah, I was thinking the other day, I don't remember when it happened, but I remember realizing that Google had become a verb, right? So that you're going to go Google something. And now, at least most of our team will go to chat to search something or raise a question, not Google.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering when chat becomes or AI becomes a verb. Because it's not always just chat. There's a lot of folks. What's the other one? Propensity? No.
I want to know when chat's going to have a gender. What is it? All right, number 5. This one's getting a lot of attention nowadays, this month anyway, with a lot of the changes going on in government, a lot of the organizations starting the new year with the return to office mandates in many cases.
I think the small to mid-sized businesses actually even saw this more a year or two ago. I think small to mid-sized businesses, by their nature, have more concern around the preserving of a culture, promoting of a culture. And, it didn't take, although we had the Simon Sinek's of the world, Jim Collins, Pat Lencioni, Vern Harnish, all these guys saying this remote work should not be the wave of the future. This was in early 2020, that it was going to interfere with collaboration and innovation, et cetera. And they were pretty adamant about it. And I think small to mid-sized businesses saw that sooner and faster. And so they were some of the first. And I remember one of my Vistage brothers saying that he really wanted everybody back in the office and he was terrified about this. And he just hated the way there were a lot of reasons for it, but he had 2 locations and he hired a new manager at the second location who just told everybody, okay, we're all coming back to work. And this was maybe 2.5 years ago. Everybody's in the office or not. So if you choose to leave, that's okay. But everybody who's going to stay here is back in the office. Nobody left. Everybody came back to the office. And he said, so I asked, and so he was afraid. I'm like, well, but you've already done a pilot of this. And I said, what's your fear? And he said that some won't come back. And I said, the ones you're afraid that won't come back, is that okay? And when he thought about it, he said, yeah, actually it is, because they aren't part of the same culture. And so I think as you're considering or that you're dealing with it, thinking, being again purposeful about the culture you want, but to John's point, having some empathy, it doesn't mean sympathy even, but at least some empathy as to what these people are dealing with coming back. Some of the folks who have been at your office working now have so many more commuters they're fighting with on their way into the office. So they're on edge by the time they get there, and maybe switch to decaf at the regular coffee maker for the first thing in the morning. They've been struggling, now they have to get their kids back out of the door. Those who have little tots still have to figure out how to pick these kids up by 6 o'clock, or there's major league penalties. It's a real challenge. All of a sudden, people downsize the space they had because we didn't need this for the last several years. And then they call everybody back to the office, and now we have people sitting on each other's laps practically, or they don't have their own personal space. They have kind of a portable set of drawers on a desk, and they have to go find one of the empty chairs. And so they don't have their own personal space that they can make their home away from home. And trying to understand what they're dealing with takes some effort. It isn't just you're coming back or else. It's a matter of trying to figure out how to smooth out this transition.
Yeah, and we really encourage those leaders who are having direct reports return back to the office to have those quality one-on-one conversations. Maybe now you can do it in person, go for a walk together, whatever you can do to build that relationship back up in person, and just recognize that the disruption to the employees' lives who are now having to figure out how to get back into the office is going to challenge them and may affect the person who's at work. And understanding that and being able to relate to that is going to be really important for leaders until we can find that new normal in where we're going to be working.
Yeah, the one-on-ones are really critical. Remember, those are not status updates on meetings. This is all about building that relationship. And the more you can build some trust, and the more your direct reports can confide in you, can explain what's going on, just getting it off their chest, knowing that somebody's listening, may make it a little bit easier for them to work through as they're trying to figure it out.
All right, we're in, our last trend that we're seeing taking root in 2025 is the importance of emotional intelligence.
Yeah, and we see this, we've been hearing it terribly through families, through the holidays, but certainly let's go back to the number 5, right? Everybody's returning to work, and the walking on eggshells that exists because of all these tensions that are brought up by the media, social or otherwise. Everybody's kind of on edge. And when I only had to put up with this much of a person on a Zoom call for an hour at a time, if I didn't like them, fine. I didn't have to deal with them other than that hour. And I could hit mute and I could say, mumble all the things that I wanted to. Now that I have to go back to the office, geez, I have to figure out how to collaborate with these people, how to put up with some of their chomping of food in a meeting and doing some other things that annoy me, or the fact that they can't park in a parking space like a normal human. That's my pet peeve here. But there's so many different things. And so the emotional intelligence for all of us, certainly the leader who can then coach others on being aware of where other people are coming from, that maybe they didn't mean, if you think about everything else they've ever said, maybe the one comment they made wasn't really worth taking offense to if you give it the context of everything else you know about this person. There are so many different things in emotional intelligence that allow us to handle this return to work more gracefully and do more around that collaboration.
Yeah, and particularly this month, the social changes that we're all experiencing, whether it's because of the US elections or some of the other social dynamics that are changing, are working their way into the workplace. You just cannot bring that in, but you do need to understand and have empathy for others' points of view, understanding that your point of view may need to be guarded in many cases. It's just very important to understand others, understand yourselves, as a lot of these social tensions are working their way, are sifting through what's going to happen this year.
And, emotional intelligence has always included self-awareness and emotional expression and understanding others and interaction with others. But now we're seeing an inclusion of how it impacts decision making and stress tolerance. And so if you don't think we're all under more stress than ever before, and how we can do that better and navigate the decision making when emotions are present, either in the emotions in the part of the leader making the decision or the emotions of those who are going to be impacted by all the decisions made.
So, in summary, the 6 areas that we think we need to keep an eye on going forward are trying to manage this optimism with a fixed talent pool and how we have to develop the people that we have. Understanding that finding people is going to be a little bit harder because the recruiters aren't as available as they once were. Being able to take advantage of some of this fractional expertise that's now available. Being aware of the impact AI is going to have and not getting too crazy, but embracing it to fill some of these productivity voids that we're going to have with all of this growth. Understanding that people coming back to the office is going to have a different set of expectation, and that we are going to be able to are going to need to be able to understand the impact that it has on their personal lives as well as their work lives. And then the continuous focus on EQ is important now more than ever.
So if you're looking, as John mentioned earlier, if you're looking for ways of considering when and how and to what extent the development needs to continue, check out the Leadership Academy. It may give you some basic foundational information that you can use to compare it to other things that are out there in the marketplace. And of course, we're always available to answer questions if you wish.
So next step, we're going to allow you to give us a little bit of feedback in a form to fill out. We're here to talk if you want to understand how this is going to impact your leaders moving forward. And as I mentioned before, check out the brand new Leadership Academy on our website and tool around there. And there's tons and tons of resources. I think we've created over 60 articles in the last 4 months on leadership that I think you find valuable. So here's the QR code. Let me drop into the chat in case you don't want to do this on your phone, and you can grab it that way. And then otherwise you can go ahead and take it from the QR code.
And just so all of you know, we've gotten some great feedback on the last several webinars we've done, and been encouraged to do these monthly. So we do plan on doing these on a monthly basis. Next month, we don't have do we have the date? I'm not sure we have the date yet.
No.
But we know it's going to be on one-on-ones, and the importance of that, given everything else we just covered, the importance of the one-on-ones with your direct reports in the workplace. And so don't miss it, or register, and you'll at least get the recording and the slides.
Also, if you fill out the feedback form, you'll get our sample of our job scorecard. The job scorecard has been reworked a little bit. It is now the #1 downloaded resource that we have in our library. So
if you don't have it yet,
yeah, take advantage of that, and keep an eye on your email for next month's webinar, one-on-ones. And we're going to talk about the importance of those and how to do them and the value behind all of that.
Do we have any questions?
No, we didn't have any questions.
All right. So I guess we said all there was to say. Have a great rest of 2025 as you kick this off. And we're always here to hear some great stories to add into our next webinars. If you have any comments, don't be afraid to shoot them over.
Bye, gang.